From oil paint to poisonous pufferfish, $200 melons to racing pigeons. Luxury goods can carry a high price. We travelled around the world to find out just what makes these products so expensive. Our first stop is an oil paint factory in France. We went to find out why some colours of oil paint can cost over $1,000 per litre. And just what is it that makes this material so special? Oil paint is simple. At its most basic, it's just a mixture of oil and pigment. But depending on the colour and quality, a litre of this paint could cost you between $285 and $1,000. So what is it that makes this paint so special, and why is it so expensive? Oil paint has been used for hundreds of years. It's made from a drying oil like flaxseed and pigment, sometimes with fillers and thickeners added. When mixed and crushed, these ingredients bind and thicken to form a permanent paint. While the rise of oil paint is associated with the Renaissance, paintings using poppy seed oil have been dated as far back as 7th century Afghanistan. But there's one key reason this paint hasn't ever been cheap. Pigments cost a lot of money.
So in a good oil paint, you're going to be looking for high pigment loading and a good quality pigment in that high pigment loading. So it doesn't matter if you have loads of pigment if it's a bad quality pigment. You're looking for light fastness so it doesn't fade, and tests on light fastness that have been going on for generations, in fact, for some pigments. So you're not going to create a masterpiece and then 50 years down the line, it's completely washed out.
The highest quality oil paint can be up to 75% pigment. And throughout history, the most sought-after pigments have been worth far more than their weight in gold. And that's because they take a lot of work to discover and to make. The favourite imperial colour in Roman times, Tyrian purple, was a bright pigment made from the glands of sea snails, and it could take 12,000 snails to make just 2 grams of the colour. Indian yellow was originally made from the urine of cows fed only on mango leaves, and in the 16th to 19th centuries, mummy brown was actually made with the ground-up remains of Egyptian mummies. And while the colour was perfect for some flesh tones, we quickly ran out of mummies to use.
Pigments do dramatically change the cost, and in professional levels, you'll have series. So you'll have probably series 1, well, up to series 7. The higher the number, the more expensive it is. And that's due to the pigments, how difficult they are to obtain, where they come from, and also how in demand they are as a product in the real world.
Possibly the most valuable, though, was ultramarine, literally meaning beyond the sea, as it had to be mined in Afghanistan. It was made from lapis lazuli, which in its purest pigment form can still cost up to $30,000 per kilo. The gemstone was used to make the pigment until a synthetic version was created in 1826. And the vibrant blue was valued so highly in the Renaissance that it was generally reserved for painting the robes of the Virgin Mary. Synthetic versions of many of these pigments have now been created. And while this means many are cheaper, some can still be difficult to produce. Cobalt blue, for example, has to be made by heating its components to 1,200 degrees Celsius. And once you have these pigments, they're tricky to work with. Winsor & Newton has been making oil paints for almost 200 years. And its factory in France produces over 5 million litres of paint each year.
In fact, produce paint is like cooking. So we have mixing, so we are mixing components like pigments and other additives like oil. We have then milling, so it depends, we're using different type of machines. So we're using granite, ceramic or steel. Then we are testing. Okay, so testing the viscosity, the grain, and of course the color.
The whole process is so select. So for every single pigment, you need to handle it in a particular way. So it will need a particular amount of oil with it, and that ratio changes for every pigment. And you're going to need to grind it to a particular fineness. And actually, even with the same pigment, the milling and the grinding will affect the colour you have. So if you overgrind, you might end up with something duller. Or with another colour, if you grind it very fine, you might end up with a purple rather than a blue.
The research and testing for these colours can take months or even years to get right. Small samples of each colour are made in a lab to measure consistency and light fastness. Above all else, the quality of oil paint needs to be reliable, as professional artists need to guarantee that what they're working on now will last for hundreds of years. And despite comparatively new paints like acrylic, oil still remains an artist favourite.
We've still got works that are still beautiful and relevant from the 15th century. And it's durable, and it has this ability to layer, where you can scrape back, you can keep working, you can work on a piece for years and keep on redoing it, and it gives every piece this history. And you know, the materials themselves are expensive, they're reliable, they're gorgeous. I mean, they come out of the painting at you.
Just nearby, the Parisian fashion house Hermès created the Birkin bag, an iconic fashion item that can now sell for over $500,000. Hermès Birkin bags are some of the most expensive bags in the world, ranging anywhere from $9,000 to $500,000. The bags embody absolute luxury.
A Birkin bag?
You've heard of it?
Of course. That's a very nice purse.
The exclusive accessory is even considered by some to be a better investment than gold or the stock market. And the world's most expensive bag is an Hermès Himalaya Birkin bag that sold for $500,000. So what is it that makes Birkin bags so expensive? The story of the bag begins with its namesake, Jane Birkin. On a flight from Paris to London, the English actress happened to be seated next to the chief executive of Hermès, Jean-Louis Dumas.
Flight attendants, please prepare for takeoff.
Jane was known for carrying a wicker basket wherever she went, and used it for everything from groceries to diapers. When she tried to fit her famous basket in the overhead compartment, the lid came off, spilling the contents everywhere. Jane complained to her seatmate that it was impossible to find a weekend bag she liked. Dumas introduced himself as the head of Hermès, and the pair spent the flight sketching possible handbag designs on the back of an airplane sick bag. A year later, Dumas presented Jane with the Birkin bag, a spacious yet sophisticated leather design perfect for everyday use. The Birkin's pockets made it highly functional, and the bag's seals to prevent anything from spilling. Hermès makes the bags in France, using premium materials like calf skin, alligator skin, and even ostrich skin. Each bag is made entirely by hand. Although Birkins are one of the most exclusive and sought-after bags today, they actually weren't all that popular when they first launched. It wasn't until the 90s that the Birkin became one of the it bags of the era. Now, they're the ultimate status symbol. Victoria Beckham reportedly has a collection of over 100 Birkins, estimated to be worth over $2 million. And Singaporean socialite and entrepreneur Jamie Chua is considered to have the world's largest Birkin collection, with over 200 bags. But you can't just walk into Hermès and get one. While there used to be a wait list, nowadays all you can do is hope to be important enough or spend enough to be offered a Birkin bag. And if you're offered one, don't expect to be able to choose the colour or size. Hermès also places limits on how many Birkin bags a client can purchase per year. This dedication to preserving the exclusivity of the bag has certainly paid off, and the disparity in demand and access has created a thriving resale market. A 2017 study revealed that the value of Hermès Birkin bags has increased 500% in the last 35 years, an increase of 14% per year. One of the most coveted models comes from Hermès Himalaya collection, which comes in 3 sizes. Often referred to as the holy grail of handbags, the white Himalaya Birkin bag features 18-carat white gold hardware and more than 200 diamonds. The 35cm model in particular is very rare, and has sold at record prices year after year. Most recently, in 2019, it sold for over $500,000. Professional sports betting consultant David Wancher, also known as Vegas Dave, made the record-breaking purchase.
The reason I bought the Birkin bag is I love breaking records. I broke all the sports betting records. I wanted to break the most expensive bag record. I'm all about raising the bar. Also, it's about supply and demand. The only other one in the world is by Steve Harvey's wife, so there's only 2 in the world. Not even Kim Kardashian has this. So I actually bought it for content, believe it or not, so I could take videos with it, pictures of it, getting people to talk about me.
The record-breaking sale actually took place over social media.
Sale is pretty easy. I post it on social media. I have about 1 million followers. I'm looking for a bag. This lady hit me up, Privé Porter. She messaged me, said she'd get me the bag. I realized it was the most expensive bag. She said it would break the record.
Yeah.
And this is for sure the record, $500,000.
Absolutely, most expensive bag ever sold.
We closed this deal in about 3 to 4 days, really, really fast. I actually do use the bag. Most people think I'm crazy. They put it away like in a safe and they never touch it again. I've taken it out twice, once to a nightclub in Vegas as a great piece of content. It's definitely worth the cost because you could offer me $1 million cash and I wouldn't sell it. My asking price is $2 million. If not, I'll just keep the damn thing.
It's also made with white or albino crocodile skin, which is extremely rare. The costly skin is painstakingly dyed to emulate the snowy appearance of the Himalayan mountains.
The high retail value and resale value is because these are pieces of artwork. These artisans train years and years to make one of these bags. And they may even train 10 years before even they're allowed to make a Birkin.
Another reason for the bag's high price, of course, is the limited availability. The total number of Birkin bags Hermès produces each year is a well-guarded secret, but it's estimated that there may be around 200,000 in circulation. And for the luxury resale market, Birkin bags are a hot commodity. Online retailer Privé Porter uses Instagram and WhatsApp to sell the bags online. And luxury reseller The Real Real has hundreds of Birkins available at any given time, many of which are priced well over the original retail cost.
The Birkin bag does retain and sometimes exceeds its value. It really does depend on the leather, the color, the size of the bag, the hardware. There are so many factors that go into pricing a Birkin that it could really vary. However, if you do buy a Birkin, let's say in 2004, and maybe the retail at that time was $5,000, you most likely will be able to sell it even if you haven't worn it so many times for $5,000, $6,000.
Even as resellers like The Real Real and Privé Porter have made more Birkins available than ever, the prices haven't gone down.
If you go to Hermès, you may not always get the exact color, size that you want. Here, we have almost every single option, and if that means you have to pay a small premium, people and our clients are willing to do so. Even though that there has been such a saturation of these bags, not one bag is the same. So let's say as an Attain Birkin 35 with gold hardware. We only have one right now, and if it's sold, we may not get another for a while, so someone's looking for that. And they'd be willing to pay an extra maybe $10,000 to get that bag as soon as possible. And all these bags are handmade, artisan craftsmanship. It's a piece of artwork. Not one is the same, not even one stitch.
So if you have an extra $10,000 lying around, it could be worthwhile to invest it in a Birkin. Just make sure that you're not falling for a fake. From Canal Street in New York City to websites like eBay, the counterfeit market is full of luxury knockoffs, and Birkins are no exception. Back in 2012, Hermès sued several websites for selling fake products and won $100 million in damages. That same year, French police cracked down on an international crime ring that was manufacturing counterfeit Birkin bags. The crime ring reportedly included actual Hermès employees. Only 2 employees were arrested, but Hermès believed that several other employees could have been involved. And despite all their efforts, fake products continue to flood the market. The quality of counterfeit bags has also vastly improved over the years, making it difficult to tell whether a bag is real or fake. However, there are a few tricks to spotting a fake Birkin.
The handles should never be too long. If they look too long, longer than the bag, then it is most likely inauthentic. The hardware shouldn't be too shiny or protrude out. And the feet, another big thing, is one of the best things I always check, is that the feet should never screw off. They are hammered in. The leather itself should feel very supple, very luxurious.
And if the price seems too good to be true, it probably is. While many other handbag styles have come and gone, it looks like the Birkin is here to stay. And the bag has become synonymous with status in a way that many other luxury goods have yet to. Despite its popularity, the bag features no prominent logos and is only recognisable to people who already know what it is. In Birkin, Hermès has created something that feels inaccessible and thus highly exclusive. As for whether the Birkin will always be so expensive, only time will tell. Over in the UK, 28,000 dogs gather each year for Crufts, and it's here that you'll find some of the world's most expensive breeds. How much do you love dogs? Enough to spend $1.9 million on one. That's how much a Tibetan Mastiff was sold for in 2014. Dog breeding is a complicated and sometimes murky world, But for the people involved, it's a lifelong obsession. So why are pedigree dogs so expensive? And what is it that makes some cost so much more than others? This is Crufts. Every year, over 21,000 dogs from 43 countries compete. And it's here that you can see some of the world's most expensive dogs. Akitas, Chow Chows, Lurchens, and Samoyeds.
I've had Samoyeds for over 30 years and I couldn't have any other breed. There is nothing quite like them. They are the most joyous dogs you would like to have. Naughty, but very nice to have. They have some interesting habits and traits, such as barking and digging, but you can stop them doing it if you do it at an early age. With all the coat that they've got, they do need an awful lot of grooming. We recommend 10 minutes a day, keeps on top of the coat, but they do shed their coat once or twice a year.
A pedigree is proof of a dog's lineage. It's a family tree showing the parents, grandparents, and even great-grandparents of each registered dog. Having healthy parents that have competed in shows or trials can drastically increase the price of the dog, and this lineage is taken very seriously. Some owners even get their dogs DNA tested to guarantee they are purebred. Once you've paid the $10,000 for a pedigree purebred dog, they can be costly to look after. Vet bills for purebred dogs can be higher, and certain breeds have much higher chances of some conditions. Samoyeds, for example, can have problems with diabetes, loss of vision, heart conditions, and even hip dysplasia. Breeders will also invest in pedigree pets for sponsorship deals and prize money at international shows, driving their demand and price up even further. Dogs with certain temperaments, builds, or features that are likely to do better at shows can cost far more. And if you have a male pedigree dog, there's real money to be made, as champion dogs can have stud fees of over $1,000. The heritage of each breed plays a huge part too.
A lot of people are interested in the history of breeds, and it has a lot to do with the way that the breeds will actually behave. So if you have a dog that has always, is from a breed that has always rounded up sheep, you tend to have a dog that will round up the family. So there are some instincts that we've bred into dogs over the generations, which tend to come out now. So if you have a dog that's always bred to be a companion, something like the Pekingese or some of the other toy breeds, then they will naturally make good companions because that's what they were bred for.
Breeding can also save vulnerable breeds of dog. The Lurchen, a tiny breed worth up to $10,000, has been around since about 1442. But by 1944 they were extremely rare. Breeder Madam Bennett brought them back from the brink of extinction, and in 1971 the Lurchen Club of America was formed. There are understandably less of them around though, which means they could be more expensive than other breeds. But at the same time as saving some breeds, the owner's market can put them in jeopardy. It was reported in 2018 that thousands of Tibetan Mastiffs were being abandoned in China. Once the most sought-after dogs in the world, costing up to $1.9 million and prized for their rarity and status, there was a complete collapse in demand. The dogs were suddenly worthless, and many were even slaughtered for their meat or fur.
If a breed becomes very popular, then breeders can charge a lot more, and there are obviously a lot of very, very good breeders out there who care lots about their animals and are breeding them to the best of their abilities. But if they're unable to get enough puppies out there for the demand, then that's where the unscrupulous breeders will come in, and unfortunately they can make an awful lot of money, possibly poor welfare for the bitches and the puppies, and we see this sadly at the RSPCA. The inspectorate do come across puppy farms, and it's pretty horrific, but they can make an awful lot of money out of it.
These sudden booms in popularity for certain species spike the price, and what's fashionable or photogenic plays a big part. Instagram is flooded with Tibetan Mastiffs, Huskies, Shiba Inus, Chow Chows and Akitas, often bred to accentuate their cute features.
I think a lot of the flat-faced dogs, the ones with no nose, the brachycephalics, you know, they are very cute. So they're seen on all the social media and Stars and all the rest of them got these dogs, and so people want to have them as well. And there's no doubt that we're seeing more and more of them. But they have been bred to such an extreme that they have so many things that I could tell you about wrong with their airways. Their tongues are too big, their soft palates are too big. It's the extremes of breeding that we can see some, you know, things that, you know, some of these animals will die.
Regardless of what you think of pedigree dogs, demand and price is growing, with a 7% rise in the number of registered puppies in the UK in 2017. You'll find it across the world, but mined in Pakistan, pink Himalayan salt has become hugely popular recently and is said to offer a range of health benefits. But just how true are the claims? This is pink Himalayan salt. It may look pretty, but a pinch of this stuff will cost you. And 100 grams of pink Himalayan salt can cost up to 20 times the price of generic table salt. So why is it so expensive? Pink Himalayan salt has gathered a cult following. Its supporters claim that it helps with everything from weight loss, reducing aging, regulating sleep, and even increasing your libido. And while the pink salt itself can cost $10 per kilo, the products made using it can be far more expensive. But what actually is the difference between types of salt, and where have these claims come from? To get an idea of what makes pink Himalayan salt different, we need to look at the different types of salt in the industry. Table salt is often made by drilling into underground seabeds, pumping out the salt water, and then refining it in purification plants. Natural minerals like magnesium or potassium are taken away. Sea salt is made by evaporating seawater using the sun or indoor heaters. Unlike table salt, it normally has no extra chemicals added, and its natural minerals stay intact. Rock salt is different. In certain regions of the world, buried hundreds of feet below the ground, are the remains of evaporated seas. This mineral, halite, gets harvested by drilling the rock face, crushing the salt and splintering it into pieces. Pink salt can only be found in very few places, from the Murray River in Australia to Maras in Peru, but the supply is far from limited. The majority of pink salt mines in the world are in Pakistan, at the base of the Himalayas, and the Khairwar salt mine in Pakistan produces 350,000 tonnes per year. So, is pink salt healthier? The salt has an estimated 84 different minerals in it, which give it its pink colour. But these minerals only make up around 2% of the salt.
So apparently it's reported you can get around 84 different trace mineral elements. However, it's such a very small percentage of the salt that makes up these minerals that you are highly unlikely to get any real benefit or any trace of them in your regular serving of salt itself. And I hate to be the bearer of disappointing news, but it's pretty similar nutritionally.
Pink salt's supposed benefits aren't just about eating it though, and many people claim it has healing properties, when either inhaled or even when used as a lamp.
I can see why trends come about. So, for instance, there's a lot of different homeopathic remedies that can seem very, very appealing, but actually because they're not grounded in evidence, a lot of the time, a small hint of something having a promise can get blown out of proportion, especially when it comes to the media, especially in terms of beautiful looking items. And I think pink salt, of course, is a lot more appealing for a lot of people when you compare it to your regular white salt.
So Himalayan salt doesn't have the health benefits claimed, but it's still marketed as a luxury salt, and global salt consumption is forecast to be worth $14.1 billion by 2020. So does it taste any better for the price?
I think it tastes nicer, but I don't know if I just think it tastes nicer because I know it's meant to taste nicer. It doesn't taste that different.
It's a bit less harsh on the palate. Doesn't sort of like burn your tongue as much, which I guess is a good thing.
I couldn't really tell too much of a difference between them, to be honest. If I was cooking with them, putting them in a dish, I probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference between them.
It just kind of tastes like salt.
There's one other big thing that's led to pink salt's popularity, Instagram.
It's because Instagram is an image-based platform. So if you think about it, it's more attractive to take pictures of something that's pink naturally or something that's bright green. It's more, I would call it aesthetic food. So looking at how food appears rather than it being a miracle benefit. And I think if you are looking at social media on a whole, it goes in seasons and it goes in whatever is the most photographed item. I don't think it will be around forever.
Over in Japan, 10,000 tons of deadly pufferfish is eaten each year. The fish is often airlifted across the country and requires years of training to prepare safely. You've probably heard of fugu, the deadly pufferfish delicacy served across Japan. The Japanese eat 10,000 tons of the fish every year, but in high season it could cost you $265 per kilo. So what makes this dish so expensive? This video contains footage of a fish being killed. There are over 120 species of pufferfish. 22 different kinds are approved by the Japanese government for use in restaurants. But one is more prized and more poisonous than the others, torafugu, or tiger pufferfish. Wild torafugu is often found at high-end restaurants, where it's served as a perfectly thinly sliced sashimi, deep-fried, and even used to make hot sake called hirizake. Yamadai has been serving pufferfish for over 100 years. Their fugu is caught in southern Japan and airlifted alive to their Tokyo restaurants. Sourcing the fish can be tricky. In Heidamari Market, the fugu is auctioned off using a bag and hidden hand signals. Each potential buyer puts their hand in the bag and makes their bid secretly before a successful bidder is chosen. When selling such a dangerous food, safety is paramount. In 2018, when a supermarket accidentally sold 5 packets of the fish that hadn't had the poisonous liver removed, the town used its missile alert system to warn residents. The tetrodotoxin found in fugu is more toxic than cyanide, and each year about 20 people are poisoned from badly prepared fish. It takes a lot of skill and training to prepare the fish safely and know which parts are poisonous.
これはエラで、これが心臓、肝脳、これが腎臓です。これは肝です。卵巣、目玉、これが食べれない。
The poisonous parts can vary by species, and hybrid species are appearing now that are even harder to tell apart. One of the hardest things to distinguish between can be the female fugu's ovaries, which are extremely toxic, and the male's testicles, which are a delicacy. The Japanese government tightly control who can prepare fugu, and chefs need to take an extensive exam before they're legally allowed to serve the fish. This rigorous regulation means that while the fish can be lethal, far more people die from eating oysters than fugu each year.
フグの試験はまずフグの種類と、あとはフグの種類でも食べられるところが違うとか、食べれないフグとか、そういうのを勉強して、フグのさばくってなると時間があって、東京の場合だと20分以内で刺身までで、あとそれと別でフグの種類を当てるっていう、それをやって、合格できれば試験免許がもらえる。
All of the skill and training that goes into preparing this fish increases its price. The fish is killed seconds before preparation, and while the process looks gruesome as the muscles continue to spasm, the fish is technically brain dead.
一回水槽から出して、で生きてるので神経抜きいうのをしてから、でまずくちばしを落として、でその後に皮を取って、でそこから内臓とかの処理をして、そこから下ろして 最終的に刺身になります。
This method of killing the fish means that the meat stays fresh for longer, and at Yamadaya, the fugu is aged for 24 hours before it's served. So what does it actually taste like?
For how transparent it is, I didn't particularly expect it to have such a chewy texture.
It really is much chewier than I expected, but it's really a very subtle taste. It's just a really fresh, sort of clean taste and really, really nice. There's another reason tiger fugu is getting more expensive: overfishing. Tiger pufferfish is near threatened, and in 2005 the Japanese government limited its fishing quotas and seasons. And another popular edible species across Japan, the Chinese pufferfish, has declined in population by 99.9% over the last 45 years. Farmed versions of these fish are much cheaper, and many more affordable chain fugu restaurants are starting to appear. But the farmed version is difficult to raise, and Japanese consumers say it just doesn't taste as good. Wild fugu's high price guarantees that it's safely prepared by an expert chef. And when you're dealing with a potentially deadly fish, that price is reassuringly expensive. It's not just the fish that are expensive in Japan. Luxury melons can cost you over $200 each. And every single one of these fruits is treated with incredible care. This melon costs $200. But that's nothing compared to the price that some can reach. And in May 2019, 2 melons from Hokkaido sold at auction for 5 million yen. That's just over $45,000. So what is it that makes this fruit so expensive? From the Yubari King to the Andes, the Higo green melon and many more, melons are grown up and down Japan, and they're serious business. The fruit isn't traditionally something you'd pick up as a snack in Japan, but is a luxury that often plays a big part in Japan's gift-giving culture. And they're not just admired for their taste, but for their looks as well. Crown melons are one of the most renowned varieties. Go into a high-end fruit store in Tokyo, and you're likely to see their signature stickers. The melons are only grown in Shizuoka Prefecture in central Japan and can cost you over $200 each. Unlike the $5 mass-produced melons you're likely to come across in a Western supermarket, crown melons take constant care and attention to grow. Fumiyoshi Chujo's family has been growing these melons for 60 years at his farm near Fukuroi.
で、ここの静岡のメロンの特徴は、一つはこうベッドで作る。地面と切り離して作るのが一つ。それで、一年中収穫をして、夏でも冬でも味が同じようになるように、美味しい味になるようにこういうやり方をしてる。
The farmers give the melons constant attention and care. Each melon takes 100 days to grow, and the fruit is grown all year round. There are 20 slightly different varieties of crown melon seeds grown depending on the season. The raised beds allow the farmers to control the amount of water each plant gets exactly, and air conditioning and heating keep the temperatures constant year round. Crown melons have 4 grades: Fuji, Yama, Shiro, and Yuki. Any melons with even minor defects are marked as Yuki. Then the top 3 grades are marked on their sugar content and perfect appearance. 55% of the melons make Shiro grade, the 3rd grade, 25% are Yama, and only 0.1%, or 1 in 1,000, of all melons harvested are graded as Fuji, the highest grade possible. After around 50 days, the plants begin to flower and baby fruits start to appear, but the hard work has only just begun.
木作りの時に他取っちゃって2本か3本交配を残すと。でもう1週間ぐらいするとこの3本のうちのこのポメロンが一番形がいい、傷がないそういうものを見つけて1つです。で1本の木に 1玉一番いいものしか残さずにして収穫する。これが最大の特徴だと思う。
This work is all done entirely by hand, and it isn't just about getting the taste right, but perfecting the appearance too. As the fruits get larger on each plant, they are carefully wrapped in white paper to protect them.
で、一般的なメロンは適当に、自然にネットが出るものをここは、こういうベッドの上で作って人工的に、玉の肥大をさせてネットを出すと。でこのネットの綺麗さによって、日本人は、値段もつける。急激な天候の変化でも大きく割れたり出なかったりっていうのを、手で水をかけてコントロールするのが一番難しくて、それがこの静岡のメロンの栽培の最大の難しい大変なところでもあるし、値段も高く出てくるもので、メロンだけれども芸術品にほぼ近い。
Once this net pattern has developed, each melon is even massaged and polished by hand. It is then covered to protect it from the sun for its final growing period. The farmers can wear through multiple pairs of white gloves polishing these melons.
Yeah, we have the reason why the melon is such expensive. So each farmer have to take care very carefully. You know that even the one mistake of amount of water on one day that makes the melon deteriorate. They have to take care every day, every time, and they take care of weather, temperature, and they kind of talking with each melon trees, how they are, how they look each day, and they grow the melon like their sons or daughters.
But the work of the agricultural cooperatives also keeps their prices high. The Shizuoka Crown Melon Company oversee the distribution and checks on melons from over 200 farmers. They ensure that the quality remains high and that the prices aren't undercut. The resulting taste is undeniably incredible. Each fruit has a complex balance of flavors and is perfectly juicy and sweet. But you'll have to decide for yourself whether the high price is worth it for the taste. Despite the cost, there's a big market for these fruits across Japan. Consumers are willing to pay to ensure that their gift is perfect, especially knowing the work that has gone into producing them. The melons are often sold in individual presentation boxes, sitting on silk or hay or tied with a ribbon. And when choosing the perfect gift, the high price is often seen as a signifier of quality. So what about those $45,000 melons? At the start of the season, the perfect first fruits are auctioned off and are often sought after as a trophy for local businesses to bid on. A new record is set for the sale of these fruits almost every year, and it doesn't look like their price is going down anytime soon. With the right skills and dedication, bonsai trees can live for hundreds of years and cost thousands of dollars. We visited Chiako Yamamoto, the only female bonsai master in Japan. Bonsai is an art form that requires years of training and centuries of dedication. At the 2012 International Bonsai Convention, a tree was on sale for 100 million yen, just under $1 million. And many more of these trees are considered completely priceless. So what is it that makes bonsai so expensive? Bonsai is the art of dwarfing a regular tree to create a perfect miniature representation of nature in a small pot. It has a long history. Originating in China, the practice of creating tiny trees and landscapes appeared as far back as the 6th century. The tree's growth is restricted by years of pruning, wiring, repotting and grafting, and the plants need to be checked on and often watered every day. The skills required to grow these trees plays a huge part in their value. They are often bent and twisted into shape, positioned around rocks, or even placed with other trees to simulate a tiny forest. Many of these techniques require years to master, and any errors made can result in permanently ruining the shape, or even killing a plant that has been growing for centuries. Chiako Yamamoto is a fourth-generation bonsai master based in central Japan. She's been creating and selling bonsai for the last 51 years, and one of the hardest skills to master when growing these plants is patience.
でこれがこうなってきます。でこれがそうですね。15年ぐらい経ってこれが15年ぐらい経ってできたものですね。ここら辺が、古い木ですね。こういうのが25年ぐらいそれからこういうふうになって作って。やっぱり枝とかそういうのはもう完成したらそこからは何も変わっていかない。でも盆栽は変わっていくんですよね。それは自分の愛情とか管理で変わっていく。そうやっていつも安定してない不安定感があるから安定してないものに自分の愛情をかけて自分ので植え替えしても新しい根を作ったら3年かかる。で変わるのは5年。だから植え替えしても植え替えした今年の仕事は3年5年後に結果が出る。
The time and devotion this process requires is unlike almost any other form of artwork. While the work is almost a form of sculpture, the plants are living things and will always react in their own way.
3年はまあまあで5年になって自分の考えが答えが出てくる。そうやっていつも変わる。その5年後になんでこんな作り方しちゃったのかなっつってそれは植物生きてるから太陽に向いて好き勝手にこう動いちゃうわけよ。そうすると自分の発想と違う動きしちゃう。そうするともう一回自分の見方をこうやってあこれよろしくないでいつもそうやって変化していく。その結果がすぐ出ないから長生きしないと結果が見えてこない。
The extraordinary time this process takes means that there just aren't that many trees around. Some of the most valuable bonsai are over 800 years old, and so the supply isn't going to increase anytime soon.
ただ盆栽は私で4代のようにやっぱり今種まいて次の人に渡す2代3代かけて作っていかなければできないので、まあ特に国内どんどん今業者減ってきてるので難しい問題だと思いますね。で今ある盆栽はかつて明治の頃山取りされたとか30年40年かけて作った名品が今あるわけ。でも今作られてる名品はあんまりないわけだから今後それが数が増えていくかってことは。
Other factors can contribute to the cost. The bonsai pots and the tools used are often handmade and can cost thousands of dollars themselves. Certain types of tree are also harder to grow or require certain techniques and may fetch a higher price. But more than anything, these trees are works of art, valued for their beauty and the vision of the artist.
作ってる方から言うと年月を考えると皆さんの年収考えたらすごく安い盆栽はねやはり世界に1個しかない同じものが2つとないで年月が何十年かかるそういうことで評価をいただけば高い値段設定もいくでも何十年かけたってそのいいものでなければ評価が低いそういうふうに盆栽の値段の評価はすごくシビアっていうかその値段の評価を認めてくれないと買ってくれないのでいくらね年月かけてもダメだし。
Real Manuka honey is only made in New Zealand, but getting the real thing can be tricky in a world of counterfeits. So how do you know that what you're buying is real? This isn't just any old honey, it's Manuka honey. And in its purest form, it can cost up to $99 per 100 grams. That's more than 100 times the price of normal honey. So why is it so expensive? Manuka honey is known for being earthier, richer, and more viscous than many other honeys. It comes from the nectar of the flower Leptospermum sciparium, also known as Manuka, which is only native to New Zealand. And Manuka, in fact, is a Maori word.
The fact that it comes from New Zealand, that gives it a premium just to start with. And because the bee travels up to about 6 kilometres to collect this honey. And so this honey is representative of the environment, and that environment is of New Zealand, Aotearoa. The plant itself and the honey is very, very rare. Out of all the honeys in the world, it probably represents 1% of all the world honeys. It's difficult to harvest. It's only a 2 to 6 week harvesting period, and the flower is only open for 12 days. And in New Zealand we have wind and we have rain and all the rest of it. So there's a lot of luck involved in getting the bee, or a lot of effort from the beekeeper. And for some years there is no honey production for some beekeepers. And we have to go to the big extent also of using helicopters to collect this honey.
Although Manuka bushes can also be found in Australia, New Zealand accounts for almost all of the world's production, with exports worth $204 million and expected to quadruple to $800 million by 2028. New Zealand's honey is protected by a quality standard that safeguards Manuka's special properties.
This honey is inexpensive honey, and anything that is expensive, people will try and copy. People will try and mimic, or people will try and cheat. So a lot of the cost here isn't actually in the protection of it, or the research, so we know it's unique, we know it's from New Zealand. We can identify it. We've put labs around the world to be able to do this identification. The New Zealand government has set up a standard to say what is Manuka honey.
So, how does the grading system work, and what exactly are you looking for in Manuka honey? We spoke to Dr. Adrian Charlton from Fairer Science, a lab in the north of England where Manuka honey is tested to identify its unique compounds.
As standard, we will test for 3 compounds: dihydroxyacetone, which is known as DHA, methylglyoxal, known as MgO, and hydroxymethylfurfural, HMF. These are the basic tests that we would undertake to make sure that Manuka honey contains the antimicrobial characteristics that the consumer would expect. We can detect them, but we can also measure the concentration of them, and that's done using UV light to detect at a particular wavelength the individual compounds. Each compound has slightly different properties. But because of the issues in the past with potential fraud, there's a suite of other tests, including tests for compounds such as leptosperin, which is a marker that's unique to the nectar of Leptospermum sciparium. We can trace then the honey back to its botanical origin, the plant that it came from.
When you pick up a jar of Manuka honey, the markers can be confusing. So how do you know that it's the real deal?
So in some cases they're labelling for the concentration of a compound, so MgO 300 would indicate 300 milligrams of methylglyoxal in that particular pot of honey per kilogram. To NPA, which is non-peroxide activity. Now that's related to the methylglyoxal concentration, but it's a more direct measure of the antimicrobial activity of the honey. Other marks, such as UMF, are quality mark, that if you can see a particular stamp on a product that it's been tested and assured to a certain standard, so that's different to actually labelling it with the concentration of a particular compound.
Another factor that's driving up the price is the use of Manuka honey in health and beauty products. Its antibacterial and anti-inflammatory properties are said to soothe and nourish the skin. And it's also said to help with blemishes and acne. But is that really the case?
There's been a number of studies that have tried to determine the health benefits of Manuka honey, and there are some very positive results, and certainly in terms of antimicrobial activity we can show that Manuka honey has antimicrobial activity in the laboratory. Those clinical trials over a long period of time have not been undertaken as of yet, but there are lots of reports that indicate that Manuka honey has benefits, but as yet unproven.
So the jury's still out on Manuka's medicinal properties, but that hasn't stopped its popularity, and Manuka honey is serious business. The prices and demand for the honey are so high that the New Zealand police have received hundreds of reports of beehives or honey being stolen, and even reports of bees being poisoned. So if you do manage to get your hands on a jar, does it actually taste different from normal honey?
Oh my god. That is delicious. The flavour is really strong.
It's very thick compared to normal honey.
It's got a kind of chestnutty flavour. It's not as sweet as usual honey. It's really smooth.
And the taste is pretty similar to what I'm used to. The texture is really interesting. It's very, very thick, almost like creamy.
Is Manuka honey really worth 100 times more than other honey? That's for you to judge. But what's for certain is that no other honey in the world is so rare and unique that it needs to pass by a lab before being sold. Pigeon racing is a sport that's been practiced for thousands of years, and from London to New York, breeders still race their birds hundreds of miles for cash prizes. Racing pigeons aren't the typical bird you'll find on the city streets, and these pedigree birds can sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars. In March 2019, Armando the racing pigeon sold to a bidder in China for over 1.4 million. So what is it that makes racing pigeons so expensive? Pigeons are some of the oldest domesticated birds. They've been kept for thousands of years and used for food, sending messages, and entertainment. They're appreciated not only for their speed, but for their looks too. And there are over 800 breeds of pigeon, many bred specifically to be exhibited at shows. Messenger pigeons were used across ancient Egypt and Rome, and their high value isn't new. In his book, Natural History, the Roman author Pliny the Elder wrote that many persons have quite a mania for pigeons, building towns for them on top of their roofs, and taking pleasure in relating the pedigree and the noble origin of each. And in about 50 BC, a single pair of pigeons was sold for 400 denarii, almost twice the annual pay of a Roman foot soldier at the time. And right up until the invention of the telegraph in 1844, homing pigeons remained the fastest way to send messages across long distances. The birds could fly 1,000 miles and reach 90 miles per hour over shorter distances. They even played a big part in the World Wars. Thousands of pigeons were used in the First World War alone, and submarines, minesweepers and tanks often carried pigeons on board to send urgent messages back to base. Their role in the war wasn't limited to delivering messages though. In 1907, Julius Neubrunner, a German pharmacist who used the birds to deliver medicine, invented a miniature pigeon camera. And this camera was used briefly in the war for aerial reconnaissance. These days, you won't see many pigeons delivering messages, but the birds are still used in races across the world.
Our birds are like pedigree dogs and cats. My father's got, we have the same family of birds for the last 40, 50 years. From, generation to generation, great-grandchildren from the pigeons my father had 40, 50 years ago.
Come on, Annie, get inside, Annie. Come on. I got one in here I call Anne-Marie after my wife. When I was racing her, she used to follow me all over the roof. Come on, girl, get inside, come on. Come on. Be a good girl, listen to me. Get inside.
It was a simple thing to have down the garden. It was a way of racing. They used to gamble on them. Whereas if you had horses, took up room, was a lot more involved. You only needed a very small garden, a tiny loft, and you could raise pigeons. Anything else, you couldn't do it. And I think that's why it became so popular.
After the war, the sport became a pastime of the working class and affordable to many. But in recent years, it's transformed. Its rising popularity in China and the huge surge in wealth there has led people to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in the birds, and the prize money for winning some of these races can be equally high. Chinese bidders have spent millions of dollars on pigeons over the last few years, often buying them in from Belgium. And Armando's value rose to 1.4 million only because of a bidding war between two wealthy Chinese buyers. Despite reaching this record price, the bird is likely to never race again, and instead be used for breeding. While the number of British pigeon fanciers has fallen from 60,000 in 1990 to about 21,000 today, there are now 100,000 fanciers in Beijing. Taiwan alone has 500,000 fanciers, and these numbers are rising. The sport is even rapidly growing in Iraq, where a pigeon recently sold for $93,000. This recent surge in value has caused problems. In 2018, 2 men tried to win the prize money at a pigeon race by smuggling their birds on a bullet train. And in Taiwan, 5 members of an organised criminal ring were arrested for kidnapping valuable racing pigeons and holding them at ransom. This new expensive world of pigeon racing across Asia has changed the reputation of the sport. And for those with the money to buy the prize winners, these birds are a status symbol. But for those who've been doing it for years, it's not about the money, but the dedication and love of the sport.
And nobody can really tell what's going to breed a perfect pigeon. You could pay a fortune for a pigeon. I think there's one been sold in China. The chances are it may never breed a decent pigeon. Who knows? Where you could buy 2 pigeons for £10 each, they hit on and they could breed you winner after winner. That's what makes it so fascinating.
I mean, I had one bird, my Hall of Fame hen. She flew 1,000 miles in 3 weeks. I put her in a 200, a 250, and a 500. The best race I ever won was the 500-mile race with my Hall of Fame hen. She'd come home 9:15 at night in the dark like a bat. I'm waiting and waiting and waiting, and all I heard was the whisper of the wind. Boom, she hit the coop. I jumped out of my shoes.
Lobsters are known as a sign of luxury, but it wasn't always this way. So how did the shellfish go from cockroach of the sea to decadent meal? It's no secret that lobsters are pricey, and a standard lobster dinner in a restaurant can set you back $38 or more. Lobsters are considered a gourmet dish today, but there was a time when they were known as the cockroaches of the sea, and even served to prisoners. So when did lobsters become such a delicacy, and why are they so expensive? There are a lot of species of lobster, but we're interested in the recognisable clawed lobsters you might see on the menu, Homarus americanus and Homarus gammarus, better known as American and European lobster. These 2 species are very similar. The biggest difference is their colour. We went to Ed's Lobster Bar in New York City to speak to someone who has a lot of experience buying, preparing and cooking the crustacean.
So one of the hardest things about working lobster is, truthfully, it's the price range of lobster, and it fluctuates greatly and from year to year, and the price increases. And the yield when you clean a lobster is very low. So you could buy 1.5 pound lobster. I think this is what most people don't understand, is in 1.5 pound lobster, there's probably only 4 ounces of meat out of a hard shell lobster. So there's not much yield that comes out of the lobster. So when you're cleaning the lobster yourself to make lobster rolls, it really turns into a very, very expensive product.
To fully understand what makes lobsters so expensive, we need to take a look at its history, because it wasn't always as revered as it is now. Lobster's history varies across the world, but for a long time it was a source of food for many of the poorest in society. During the Viking era, lobsters as food became much more popular in Northern Europe, as boats more suited to deep-sea fishing became available. And by establishing meat-free days for certain religious holidays, the church also increased demand for seafood, including lobster. Across Europe, lobsters became associated with status and a lavish lifestyle, and they were often featured in paintings to show wealth. But the value of lobster remained low in North America. Native Americans used lobsters as fishing bait and crop fertilizer, a practice that European colonists later copied. During the 1600s, American lobsters were dirt cheap because they were so plentiful. Lobster became known as the poor man's protein among European settlers, and the shellfish was often served to imprisoned and enslaved people. That reputation in the US didn't turn around until the advent of railway transportation in the mid-1800s. Lobsters started to be served on trains across the country, and passengers soon became fans of the exotic-seeming dish. For a better taste, chefs began cooking lobster alive, which they still do today. Unlike many other foods, lobster wasn't rationed in the United States during World War II, and the lack of other meat options led many more people to discover this delicacy. The shellfish's surging popularity reduced the stocks of lobsters and drove up the price, and lobster became a gourmet dish often associated with living the high life. Even when the supply of these crustaceans is high, the price doesn't drop due to the logistics involved. Successfully catching lobsters is no easy task. They're caught using traps, which have to all be baited and dropped to the ocean floor. Even if the traps are full when the lobstermen return, they might have to throw a lot back due to regulations. The crustaceans are put back if they're too big, too small, or if they're female lobsters carrying eggs. The ones that make the cut have their claws bound and are placed on ice before being taken back to shore. They're then kept in saltwater tanks and shipped live. They need to be kept cool and moist, as well as get enough oxygen to survive the journey, all of which increases the cost to distribute them. A commercial lobster farm could help reduce costs, but it's very difficult to successfully farm American or European lobsters. Out of 50,000 eggs, only 2 lobsters typically survive to reach legal size. And if the lobsters don't get enough food, they become cannibalistic. They're also highly susceptible to contagious diseases, particularly in confined spaces. On top of all that, they grow very slowly. It takes around 7 years for a lobster to mature to the required harvesting size. Regardless, lobster catches have been increasing since 1980, and wild lobster populations have been holding steady, possibly thanks to global warming. Climate change has led to warmer waters and therefore longer life cycles and higher fertility for lobsters. Even when there's plenty of lobster to go around, it's still expensive. In 2017, the price of Maine lobster increased because of the high demand for lobster rolls, despite a record catch the year before.
The wholesale price for lobster can fluctuate anywhere from $8 to $10 depending on the season per pound. So right now, market price at Ed's Lobster Bar, we charge $38 for a £1.5 lobster. And our lobster roll is $34 for a 4-ounce lobster roll. And if we all stop and move out of the way, the lobster delivery is going to come in.
Ed's Lobster Bar gets daily shipments of 150 to 200 pounds of fresh Maine lobster.
All of our lobster shipments are for a day or a day and a half max. Nothing ever sits in the restaurant over 2 days. So the reason why you want to cook lobsters live is, number one, because a dead lobster is not going to be good. When the lobster is dead, the meat is going to turn to mush, it's going to smell bad, and you really can't eat it. It kind of disintegrates inside the shell. And if you actually served or ate that, you're definitely going to get sick. So you always want to make sure the lobster is alive and kicking before you cook it.
Lobsters have become a favourite summertime treat. On a busy night, Ed's will sell 150 lobster rolls.
You know, summer is definitely the season for lobster rolls. It's when it's everybody's thought process. Here in New York City, everybody's coming in the summer that can't get down to the beach because they want to get their lobster roll fix.
People just can't seem to get enough lobster. But a shortage in the US may be coming soon. Lobster fishers use herring as bait, and there's about to be a lot less of them. Because of concerns about overfishing, the New England Fishery Management Council last year voted to limit fishers to about 46 million pounds of herring this year. In 2014, fishers caught 200 million pounds of herring. With so much less available to buy, the price of herring will likely rise, which would in turn make lobster even more expensive. And will people be willing to pay even more for their lobster?
You know, I'm very concerned about lobster prices rising. It seems to be the bottom just keeps going higher and higher every year. I don't believe the consumer is willing to continually absorb the price increase that we have to absorb as restaurant owners selling lobster.
Walk around any big city and you're likely to see the Supreme logo, and the streetwear giant's popularity shows no sign of slowing. So why would anyone pay $3,500 for a hoodie?
Supreme, baby. I just bought a faux fur jacket for $1,000, so
people want to know, hey, look, that guy's wearing Supreme, but people also make a living off it too, so.
These two jackets are nearly identical, both made by the North Face and both using Gore-Tex technology. This one on the left costs $300. The one on the right is currently selling for nearly $1,300. So what's the difference? This one just happens to be a North Face collaboration with Supreme. So why would someone pay nearly $1,000 more for basically the same jacket? And what is it that makes Supreme so expensive? From the eye-catching logo to the limited product releases and artist collaborations, over the past 20 years, Supreme has transitioned from a small skateboarding store in New York to a $1 billion streetwear company. But for its fans, Supreme is more than just a brand. It's often an obsession and an entire subculture of its own. Since its origin, Supreme has maintained an image of being authentic. Founded by James Jebbia in 1994, Supreme started as a skateboarding store in the Soho neighborhood of Manhattan. The store started out selling hoodies and sweatshirts aimed towards the burgeoning New York skate scene. Throughout the 90s and early 2000s, Supreme functioned as a skate brand, catering to both skaters and those interested in the emerging streetwear style. But Supreme's limited releases and attitude has pushed them far beyond their beginnings. The most iconic Supreme design is their box logo. Originally, simple white italic lettering over a plain red background. This design so closely echoes the work of conceptual artist Barbara Kruger that it's hard not to see it as a direct copy. And copyright theft is something that's in Supreme's DNA. Supreme's appropriation of images is one of the keys to its popularity. Pop cultural imagery and logos are copied and adapted in a way that makes their designs feel more like contemporary art or graffiti than a big fashion brand. Supreme's first branded t-shirt was simply a photo of Robert De Niro in the film Taxi Driver, along with the iconic red and white logo. And the company's use of often unlicensed imagery has led to Supreme being served cease and desist letters from Louis Vuitton, the NHL and the NCAA.
The more we've been exposed to a brand, the more likely we are going to be developing an association, a familiarity, almost a sense of connection with it. With Supreme, there's no elements of status, and they went completely for what a logo should be all about: standing out, being identifiable.
The recognizability is key to Supreme's power as a brand, but the items are also purposefully difficult to get a hold of, and their products are kept in high demand by very limited releases.
Tuesday at 11 a.m. you go to the Supreme website, you enter your basic information, your name, email, phone number, and credit card number. Then they'll send you a text later in the day to let you know if you've been selected to stand in line. Then on Wednesday, they'll send you a text telling you the time and store to report to. And on Thursday, you go to the store at the time that you're given. There's a one limit per style rule in Supreme. So what that means is if a shirt comes out in black, red, and gray, you can only get it in gray. So if I want it in black and red, I need to get 2 other people to get it for me. So they need to stand in line for me. A lot of the people who do stand in line are standing in line for someone else.
Supreme only sells their merchandise at 11 brick and mortar stores across the world, as well as their online store. It was around the mid to late 2000s that Supreme really started to pick up speed. This success was partly due to what's been dubbed the Kanye effect. In 2006, Supreme released their Supreme Blazer SB, a collaboration with Nike. The shoes retailed for around $150, with resale prices ranging from $300 to $400. In July 2007, West was pictured wearing the shoes at the Grammy Foundation's Starry Night party. After the photos were released, the resale price of the shoes doubled to $800. Similarly, the teal box logo sweatshirt worn by Tyler the Creator in his She music video, originally priced at around $150, sold for $3,500. But not everything from Supreme is going to end up being valuable. Sellers like Chris have to decide what's going to be popular and what items will give them the best return.
So how I decide on what I think is going to resell is based mainly on what I would wear. You can also go to these Instagram accounts and they'll have Instagram polls, Twitter polls, talking about, oh, like you can upvote this, you can downvote this, and it's this crowdsourcing tool to understand the market better and find out, oh, this one's gonna resell, or this one is really popular. The most money that I've made off of one Supreme item is the 2017 Fall-Winter collaboration with the North Face, and it was a mountain parka. I bought it for $398 and I sold it for $950.
This incredibly limited release means that buying and reselling Supreme items is where the real money is. When you look at the prices of Supreme items in store, they aren't as outlandish as you may expect. They retail for around $38 for a t-shirt to $138 for a sweatshirt, but it's once these products have sold out that they can reach 30 times their original price. Many other big brands are now adopting this method of very limited releases to generate hype around their products. From trainers to other streetwear brands, these releases make people feel like they're part of something exclusive.
The more we make a consumer work for a particular access to a product, the more alluring these services and products are becoming. So I think Supreme know very well how to make something incredibly accessible and sexy by allowing us to jump through as many hoops as possible to make it relevant for them.
But there's something about Supreme that's different. Could any other company get away with selling a brick or a branded crowbar? What is it that gives Supreme such a devoted following?
I think it's the hype. They come out with really cool items. I personally feel like they do. It's a name brand, and name brands attract anybody at the end of the day.
In New York, especially, it's a lot of streetwear. So like people want to have that like exclusive, those exclusive items. So I feel like Supreme, they keep their quantities very low because of the high demand. People will pay that price if it's something they like.
Supreme, I think the thing that really causes people to spend money and wait in line is kind of the it factor that it has, right? And they've done an amazing job of limiting quantities and underproducing to the demand. So in that way, their market of people that would want to buy the product isn't just people that are interested in the product, but it's also people that are interested in making money. And that demographic is way bigger than people that are just interested in streetwear. So when there's an opportunity to make money, then there's going to be a huge line of people around the block, regardless if they want to wear the product or not.
Supreme has managed to somehow keep their cool, alternative and exclusive image despite their expansion, and has still maintained its skater credentials despite selling a 50% stake in the brand to a private equity firm, with more and more people wanting their products. For now, it looks like Supreme isn't going anywhere. Wagyu beef, imported from Japan, has become a staple luxury of restaurants across New York. So what makes this beef so special? This is Wagyu beef, one of the most expensive meats in the world. Produced in Japan and prized for its rich marbling and buttery taste, high-grade Wagyu can cost up to $200 per pound, and the cows themselves can sell for as much as $30,000. But what is it that makes the meat so expensive? The term Wagyu literally translates to Japanese cow, and it generally refers to 4 main breeds. These cows were bred for physical endurance, giving them more intramuscular fat cells. The fat is distributed more evenly throughout their muscle, which is why Wagyu beef looks pink and tastes so tender. And the Japanese government tightly regulates Wagyu production to protect the value and quality of the meat. Wagyu is graded on 2 main factors: how much meat can be yielded and the quality of the marbled fat. Only A3 to A5 Wagyu is certified for sale in Japan, and the higher the grade, the higher the price. Wagyu beef has gained almost legendary status, and there are many myths about Wagyu farms and the way the animals are treated, from getting daily massages to being fed beer, but these often aren't true. The cows are raised very differently in each region and by different farmers, but they're often raised by a breeder until they're about 10 months old and then sold at auction to a fattening farmer. By the time the calves are sold at auction, they can already fetch 40 times the price of US cattle. The fattening farmer will keep the animals in small pens and feed them a mixture of fibre and high-energy concentrate made from rice, wheat and hay. They're often fed this 3 times a day for almost 2 years, until the animals are almost 50% fat. Only the pregnant cows and breeding cattle are allowed to graze on pasture. The length of the fattening process and the import prices of the huge amount of concentrated feed increases the cost of the beef, and over this fattening period, each cow will eat 5 tons of feed. If and when a cow goes to auction, it can sell for as much as $30,000. Comparatively, Black Angus cattle, which are considered the cream of the crop in countries like the United States and Australia, typically don't sell for more than $3,000. And depending on the kind, the Wagyu can fetch close to $200 per pound. High marbling is the common goal, but the approach varies by farm and area. While there are more than 300 varieties of Wagyu available, the most notable cuts come from 10 regions. One of the most expensive cuts is Matsusaka Wagyu from Mie Prefecture. Made exclusively from virgin female cows and highly prized for its tenderness. In 2002, one Matsusaka cow sold for 50 million yen, or roughly $400,000. However, the best known cut of Wagyu is Kobe beef, which comes from the city of Kobe in Hyogo Prefecture, and is made exclusively from steers or castrated bulls. Although Kobe is commonly seen on US restaurant menus, customers should be wary of items like Kobe burgers, as authentic Kobe beef is too tender to be formed into a patty. Several US restaurants are actually serving hybrid Wangus beef, from domestically raised Wagyu and Angus cows. The highest ranking Wagyu is A5 Miyazaki, a 2-time winner of the Wagyu Olympics. A5 Miyazaki will cost you $100 or more per pound. At Sakamai in New York City, it's the Wagyu of choice. The restaurant is best known for serving it in an $85 katsu sando, a popular Japanese-style sandwich.
On a busy night, we probably serve about 25 of them at $85 a pop. Because Wagyu is so difficult to find in the US, yes, we do have a number of customers coming to us just to try the Wagyu. Sometimes Two Top will come and just order the sando by itself. There are a lot of tariffs and quotas on Japanese beef imports, and it's actually not allowed to import live cattle, so it is very difficult to source Wagyu.
So is it worth it? We decided to have our team give A5 Miyazaki Wagyu a try.
Holy sh**. It's so good. It's really like, it's like buttery. It's like as if it was like coated in butter, but
But it wasn't, it was literally just salt and pepper, which is crazy.
And there might be something even more sought after than the A5 Miyazaki. Hailed as the rarest steak in the world, olive Wagyu comes from cattle raised on pressed, dried olive peels mixed into their feed. It was developed in 2006 by a Japanese cattle farmer named Masaki Ishii. Only about 2,200 of these cows were slaughtered in 2018, and they all live on the island of Shodoshima, home to Japan's oldest olive oil plantation. This special Wagyu is said to be extra tender and can cost anywhere from $120 to over $300 for a steak. While Wagyu's popularity grows worldwide, the domestic picture is a little different. Wagyu's popularity in Japan is actually slumping slightly, and the country imported more US beef than any other country as of 2017. The value of Japanese exports of Wagyu has risen over 200% in the past 5 years. And as Japan's population ages, farmers are struggling to keep up with the increased global demand, raising prices even more. But the high cost hasn't discouraged international sales. In 2013, Japan exported 5 billion yen worth of Wagyu. Last year, exports hit 24.7 billion yen. And many producers are now getting halal certifications for their slaughterhouses, so they can export to Muslim countries. However, Japan may eventually have some competition when it comes to producing high-quality Wagyu. Countries like the US, Australia, and the UK have been working on breeding their own Wagyu, usually relying on crossbreeding. Most British, American, and Australian Wagyu are only 50% purebred, but that may be changing soon. In the UK, for example, the Wagyu Breeders Association now registers DNA-verified full-blood Wagyu bulls and certifies authentic British Wagyu. New methods and increased regulation may result in a product as good as the original, which means that there soon could be a lot more Wagyu that costs a lot less. For years and across the world, Air Jordans were the shoe to have. Despite a bumpy road, their popularity has endured, and the sneakers are now more expensive than ever. This is the Jordan 1 Retro Fragment. It originally retailed for $185 in 2014. But today a pair can resell for up to $2,000. And this is the Yeezy Boost 350 V2 Core Black Red, which retailed at $220 in 2016 and now resells for $900. The Fragment's resale value more than doubles its competition. These shoes were both sold in limited releases, so why did Jordans become so much more expensive? It all has to do with the value of the Jordan brand and how it makes and markets its iconic sneakers.
The fact that it's made in China where the tariffs are higher, made in the best factories, made with more material. Basketball shoes tend to use more material than a running shoe. And then trying to be as close to the original product are all things that have driven the prices up there.
According to Matt's research, the average price of a basketball sneaker is about $110, while Jordan's average price is about $145. To understand why Jordan brand can charge more, let's go all the way back to the beginning, before the Jordan 1 was introduced. Before the 1984-85 season, Nike signed an unproven MJ to a 5-year deal worth more than 3 times the richest contract to that point. But that wasn't the only unusual decision Nike made while launching the Air Jordan brand. The Air Jordan 1 swapped the standard white upper for a black one, which violated the NBA's uniform policy and resulted in a $5,000 fine per game.
On September 15th, Nike created a revolutionary new basketball shoe. On October 18th, the NBA threw them out of the game.
Nike recognized this unique marketing opportunity and footed Mike's bill as he went on to win Rookie of the Year, playing every game in his band's namesake sneaker.
It just showed that he was rebellious and it was something that people gravitated to and they wanted to wear them too. It was like the first sneaker that really shook up sneaker culture. I think it's the shoe that catapulted sneakers to where they are today because it was the first shoe that people saw and wanted more than the average shoe.
Mike's success as a rookie made a big impact on Nike's bottom line. The original Jordan 1 hit stores across America in March 1985, priced at $65. And at the end of the year, the Air Jordan franchise had made $100 million in revenue. The Air Jordan 2 wasn't as successful. After just 18 games in his new design, Jordan suffered a season-ending broken foot. Reports surfaced about Mike being unhappy and looking to jump ship to Adidas. The Air Jordan 3 became a crucial crossroads for Jordan and Nike. Enter Tinker Hatfield. Today, he's known as the architect of modern sneaker design. Back then, he was known for innovating Nike's Air Max technology. His Jordan 3 design became legendary. It pioneered the first ever mid-cut basketball sneaker, included elephant print overlays, and immortalized his airness in the Jumpman logo. And Tinker incorporated his Air Max technology into the sole.
Those three things, I think, brought its cultural importance because it was a statement shoe, right? So now you were actually making a statement by wearing a basketball shoe, which wasn't necessarily the purpose of wearing a basketball shoe off court.
The company's rollout of the Jordan 3 was equally as legendary as the design. Nike's marketing team connected Jordan with Spike Lee for what would become some of the most memorable commercials in history.
You know how I get up for my game? Do you know? That's right, Air Jordan, Air Jordan, Air Jordan.
You really saw the Jordan brand become a luxury brand in the United States. It was our designer sneaker, and it made the shoes very visible. And that's a big part of conspicuous consumption, is to be able to look across the room and see that that person's wearing a $100 shoe or a $300 shoe in today's parlance.
During all this, the price of Jordans had jumped to $100, significantly higher than the top basketball sneaker at the time, Converse's Weapon. Jordan marketed its sneakers as a luxury product to match MJ's talent and style, and in the process created a cultural phenomenon, bringing sports apparel into the mainstream.
He was a very marketable figure with a great smile and a big hoop earring, and people wanted to look like him. And so you started seeing this face all over the world.
But the brand priced out kids from low-income families who wanted them the most. And by the 90s, Jordans were so coveted, violence erupted around them. 2 teens were even killed for their Jordan sneakers. Nevertheless, the phenomenon continued. Jordans were a status symbol that couldn't be stopped.
Whether you're into fashion, whether you're into sports, or whether you're just a fan of Michael Jordan himself, you have to know about Jordan Brand. You have to own something from Jordan Brand.
Hatfield continued to design Jordan's signature sneakers for the next 12 years. The Jordan brand became a sneaker giant, and MJ became the greatest player in basketball history. Their run lasted for more than a decade, but that was all about to change. In 2013, Adidas released new technology, signed Kanye West, and started making big gains. Despite increased competition, Jordan's prices stayed high. That year's new Jordans retailed at $250, the highest price for a new signature Jordan release to that point. Retro prices jumped too. A retro is a re-release of an original shoe.
$220 for these, $400 for these.
This happens with every sneaker brand. As they see the resale prices of their shoes go higher, they want more of the pie. And so they started to try and get more of the pie.
When Adidas came out with a lot of their more popular styles during that era, it caused a lot of people to just say, I'm gonna stop buying Jordans for right now, and I'm gonna focus on these newer styles that are comfortable, that are cool, that are trendy.
Jordans weren't selling out as fast as they had in previous years, and Jordan increased supply to balance out revenues, but it oversaturated the market. According to Soul Collector, between September and November 2017, Jordan released 30 different retros. The price hikes, combined with an oversaturated market and increased competition, led to what Soul Collector called Jordan fatigue, and Adidas's market share nearly doubled. Jordan brand president Larry Miller admitted that the brand had released too many shoes and needed to figure out how to connect to young consumers again. And Nike CEO Mark Parker did just that with his edit and amplify strategy. He helped Nike's R&D cut down from 350 sneaker ideas to 50. This helped the company be more disciplined and catch up with the speed of the sneaker market.
The secret sauce for Jordan over the years has always been unrequited demand, never having enough shoes to satisfy the market, which made the kid come back on the next release and hope that he would get a pair.
Jordan mounted its comeback in 2018. The brand ramped up offerings for female customers, and its Concord 11 retro release was its most successful shoe introduction ever, according to Parker. And they've been able to connect to a new generation, tapping Travis Scott, Virgil Abloh, and more to offer their takes on the historic designs.
Today, you don't really need to market a Jordan product, and so it becomes a pull market. The idea is that the product is so sensational, so wanted by the consumer, that it's pulling them into the store.
The brand is pulling in customers like the old days, and according to Parker, Jordan 1s are more coveted than ever. Resale info backs that up. Remember that comparison we did at the beginning? it looks like Jordan is getting the balance just right between nostalgia and innovation.
This has to be my favorite sneaker of all time. This is the Air Jordan 4 White Cement.
The Aleli May Jordan 1 Biotech.
The Air Jordan 1. It represents the beginning of Jordan's career.
I think it's interesting to see how the Jordan brand continues to evolve as it ventures deeper into the woman and unisex market.
You know, it just reminds me of my childhood. This is really what got me into the sneaker game.
It's the reason why a lot of us sneakerheads exist. And this Lakers colorway, man, that's just perfect.
Often called one of the most expensive liquids in the world, printer ink has a bad reputation. And the actual ink inside the cartridge doesn't cost that much to produce. So why is it so expensive? A gallon of printer ink can cost you $12,000. When in cartridge form, it's more expensive than vintage champagne and even human blood. In fact, it can be cheaper to buy an entire printer than it is to purchase new ink cartridges. So why is printer ink so expensive? Let's start with the first printers. No, not that far. No. Come on. There we go. Inkjet printers were first developed in the 1960s, and early computer inks were made from food dye and water. Because of this, they would fade after a few months. So companies had to develop a dye that gave permanent photographic quality. In 1988, Hewlett-Packard achieved just that, with the first mass-market inkjet printer, which sold for about $1,000. But a lot has changed since then. Today, you can buy a brand new printer for around $35, but there's a catch. When the ink runs out in one of these printers, you need to buy specific cartridges, and these cartridges are expensive. So why are the cartridges so pricey?
Oh, that's simple. Greed. And an outdated razor and blades model.
This is David Connett. He's the former editor of The Recycler and has been lobbying for change in the printer ink industry for years.
They sell the printers cheap, they sell the consumables at a very expensive price, and basically it's a formula. The cheaper the printer, the more expensive the consumables.
Once you've bought a printer that uses cartridges, you're trapped in a cycle. You have no choice but to buy them or throw away your printer. As a printer is typically a one-time purchase, companies don't mind selling them at a loss and making the money back through cartridge sales. The HP Envy 4520 all-in-one printer, for example, sells for $70, but is estimated to cost $120 to manufacture. The loss they make on printers means that companies need to sell ink cartridges to make a profit, and this model has led to a battleground between printer manufacturers and third-party ink suppliers. The companies do everything they can to keep you buying official ink cartridges. Manufacturers install microchips into their cartridges and frequently issue firmware updates to prevent the use of third-party ink, which can be more affordable.
Last year, almost 900 firmware upgrades were issued by just 9 printer manufacturers. So that's almost 3 a day. I mean, that's just like either absolute incompetence, because you've got to do it so much, or it is a definite stealth tactic to control the market.
Printer companies attribute the high costs to the research and development that goes into perfecting printer ink. The materials they use, however, cost very little.
The manufacturing cost of ink is between 20 and 40 euros a litre.
And a lot of the ink you buy never even gets used for printing. According to a 2018 test by Consumer Reports, more than half the ink you buy could end up lost in maintenance cycles for cleaning the printheads. And printers that use multiple colour ink cartridges also stop working as soon as one colour runs out, even if the other colours are still full. These days, you're getting even less for your money. While the cartridges themselves are the same size and price, they often contain far less ink inside than they used to. The ink in many manufacturers' cartridges has shrunk from 20ml to around 5ml over the past few years, without any reduction in price. The original size 20ml cartridges are often still on sale, but are often sold as extra large cartridges for even more money, and some new cartridges can have as little as 3 milliliters of ink inside. Some companies have now even started ink subscriptions, deactivating your cartridges remotely if you print more than your allocated pages. Laser printers offer a lower cost alternative to inkjet, but produce a lower quality printed image. The real solution for many, though, would be to offer more efficient ink cartridges.
This product, can be better engineered. They could liaise with the aftermarket to actually, find a solution that works for everybody, because, ultimately this is bad for the consumer because it's overpriced and expensive, and it's bad for the environment because it doesn't need to be made that way.